Good morning. It is about 5:07 right now on Monday, July 7th. We just had the 4th of July long weekend, which is very nice to have extra days off. I started to record this on my computer, but again, my camera's acting up, so I have to switch over to the laptop right now. So, without further ado, I'm trying to get to a bunch more of these book reviews that I plan to take care of. I literally have a stack of books about 7 deep of things I've already read that I want to talk about and give you information if you ever want to pick it up yourself. Um, or to open up conversation and dialogue between anyone who has read these things and can disagree with my thoughts or echo what they're thinking as well. So it was so this next one I have here that I'm going to talk about is one I had to kind of like slog through my notes to try to like make a coherent sense of what we're going to talk about here today. I will do the best I can, but it's going to have a meandering point to it. It's going to be that way because of the source material that I'm going to be discussing. So without further ado, this is Falling Bedrooms: Our Lives in the Quantum Field. It is by Dr. Donna Clovis. It's published through Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House, which is like a vanity press that you can just pretty much buy a book binding if you have the money to do so. One of the things that is discussed in this book a lot is the concept of synchronicity. Almost like a cosmic coincidence, but it's meant to happen because it might bring two concepts or two people together at a very specific time in space. And what the purpose or reason for that is not prevalent in what you read here. But like, for instance, someone shows her, hey, I got this old photo of my father from like so many years ago. And if you look on the back wall, there's a poster and your quote is on the poster. Synchronicity. Okay. There's a lot of talk about the quantum world. And no, we're not doing Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania kind of stuff here. It's just something where, you can tell stories through multiple dimensions. And there's the concept of parallelism that exists while doing so. Parallel stories describing the experiences in the quantum world of multiple dimensions. It combines Einstein's theory of relativity of the past, of the present, and the future, all for time, with synchronicity of the subconscious as defined by Carl Jung. She places an extreme emphasis on the correlation between Carl Jung and Albert Einstein, saying that they laid the foundation of synchronicity in physics. Quote, in the quantum field, consciousness can travel the speed of light from the future into the past and back to the present, using the theory of relativity that Einstein posited, now supported by quantum mechanics and the concept of synchronicity. There it is again. Then they're switching gears. So, from what I've seen so far, a lot of what Dr. Donna actually writes about is Princeton. And this part of the book talks about the racism of Princeton. And there's 3 points I had written down here. One is Dr. Clovis is a willfully submitting as a scribe of the Princeton place, like a puzzle piece of past, present, and future. Number 2, the North Star was always like the slave's friend. It pointed to escape for slaves that were trying to get out of the South because it pointed north. Princeton lies at the 40.5 parallel of the latitudes of the globe. And Princeton is considered the northernmost southern town. Not sure what the purpose of all that was, but there it is. And number 3, in our present, the effects of slavery still remain. It creates an unfair caste system in education, housing, civil rights. And there's more hate groups that keep moving in this era of Trump. In fact, As the time of the writing, in Princeton, there was a planned white supremacy march at noon. And to go further with Princeton, she writes that Princeton inhabits a particular spatial geometry. On the one side, the great literary untold narratives of the colored and a typically white canon of Princetonian literary arts. Read one from outside slavery and one that's inside slavery. The fact that Princeton is the northernmost southern town sparkles on economic and educational power to keep the oppressed silent in a segregation without their voices, without their stories. Dr. Donna Clovis herself is writing from the future to the present about the past. And she brings you to the future by means of synchronicity. Where time becomes space. Space is a narrative thought through the quantum dimension, through the labyrinth. Because the labyrinth permits to intervene within the construct of dimensions through synchronicity, which is beyond segregation. Then there's a point in the book where it actually goes into a story. She traverses through a mirror to find herself in the labyrinth. And there's more Alice in Wonderland allegory. Even a rabbit yelling, late, 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 I'm late, I'm late. There's a quest that has to be undertaken. It has to find the dragon's blood tree, has to get red sap from the tree, which you can only harvest twice a year. Encounters guardians, there's fireflies, and flying on hummingbirds. What I thought was just a lot of no throughput of thought to tell this tale. Moving onwards. There's a section in here called Daydreams of Hate. And there's a recurrence that she's trying to parallel here regarding, I guess, hate and evil things that occur on November 9th. For some reason, November 9th happens to be a day of hate, which I am paraphrasing here. And the examples are this. In 1923, Hitler and 2,000 others staged a coup in Munich. In 1939, they performed what has been known as Kristallnacht, or Night of Glass, when there was like pogroms and just assaults on the Jews in Germany. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. And today, in 2018, which is when the book was written, there's memories of hate crimes and mass shootings. And I looked into this too to see, hey, is this right? And it's like, well, yes, in 1923, over November 8th and 9th, there was the uprising that Hitler and the others did. And then 15 years later is when Kristallnacht happened on the 9th and the 10th. Who knows if it happened as an anniversary date or just like, hey, it is. The Berlin Wall falling, I don't see the hate in getting rid of that. It's just the wall came down. So it's kind of a good thing, not a hate thing. And then in the 2018, it's just remembering crime. So it's like nothing happened on November 9th. It's just, and today we remembered that there's stuff going on there. So it's a weird recurrence of November 9th. It's pretty much just the German political party doing something around that day twice over the course of 15 years. Moving on. This next part I actually found interesting because I wasn't aware of it, but there's something out there that was called the Negro Motorist Green Book. So we're talking about 1938 through 1968 in America, which are known as Jim Crow years. And this Green Book was published because it actually gave Negroes that were trying to travel through the South, maybe even the North, but in certain areas, a Zagat's guide of places that you can go to that you will be welcomed. You know, if you're traveling on your car and you actually are going to, you need gas somewhere, hit these gas stations because they'll actually serve you and you can get gas to move on to your final journey destination. There's, you know, gas stations, restaurants, nightclubs, beauty parlors. Just there's a nice locational guide that Negroes can feel welcome and not just automatically be kicked out and or unfortunately lynched. Today, she changed the narrative a little bit where it talks about fake news or the atheists of Facebook that are out there. You know, Facebook having once sold your personal data to Spotify and Netflix, let's say. And what she says, Orwellian has become Trumpism in the era of the Facebook follies. To keep on the theme of race, she says CBS reveals their all-white staff to report on the 2020 election, which may be true if you overlook that Gayle King was on the staff, an African-American broadcast journalist, editor-at-large for Oprah's O Magazine, and also named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2019, just 1 year prior. There's also on that staff that covered the 2020 election, Maria Elena Salinas, also known as the voice of Hispanic America. And to top it off, there's also Nancy Cordes, a Hawaiian, who was the chief White House correspondent at CBS. So it's an example of what I see is you will see what you want to see if you're looking for it. You're going to call them all white? Well, definitely not all white, especially with a superstar on the payroll. So, but if you want to see it that way, if 6 of the 7 or if 7 of 8 are, you're just going to look at it through those lenses. The quote here is, black and white in America are used to divide and perpetuate a machinery of hate. Positing further, you know, the belief that one race is superior to another. Race covers to the admission that racial bias exists in America. To which she finishes on the final thought of, this is a country, America is a country that does not condemn its past history of slavery. Which a simple search on that one, you can say that if that's what you believe, but you're absolutely ignoring that several states have acknowledged their hand in slavery. They condemn their own actions and activities, and Virginia being the first state to do so. You can say that especially if you ignore that the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution about the exact same thing, condemning slavery in their past. And especially if you ignore the U.S. Senate, who also passed a resolution apologizing for the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery. So it's very easy and practically applaud-worthy to just orate aloud that someone like in America has never condemned their slavery background when you're deaf to the fact that they have done just that. And oh, by the way, Dr. Donna Clovis has won a first place feature, say it one more time. She's won a first place feature rating award on racial profiling from the National Association of Black Journalists. One second, please. There is an aside that in Christmas 2018, the Washington Post tallied 7,546 false statements for the last 700 days, approximately 2 years from the Trump administration. Lying as a falsehood is detrimental to the nation. Remember, This is the same person who said that the U.S. has never had an ounce of remorse on slavery of its past. She goes further to make a point. Talks about the red-hatted MAGA kid who was smirking in front of the Native American, which, the best point about that story, which a lot of people like to point to and be like, you see, that's what they're like. When you get the full story of what happened and not just a quick little visual that you can make your own judgments on, you find out that the Native American person on the steps actually confronted the boy, whose name was Nick Sandalman, on the steps. The boy wasn't making fun of the Indian, and he was actually kind of reserved, no pun intended, in light of the situation. He just stood his ground. That's it. In fact, he won lawsuits against the news agencies that painted him as a racist and a person who was just shitting on other cultures, being a MAGA with hate kind of person. So in this section of hate, to even mention this and allude to it shows not doing the research. Continuing further, before I actually have to get out of here, I have someplace to go in like 15 minutes. Of days and times and seasons is the chapter. The last 30 pages of a 118-page book. And here, just a lot of like little snippets are coming out there. Like, for instance, John Grisham was writing his new novel, Camino Island. And he wanted to go, his character in the book, go into like the Princeton archives. But what he wrote didn't exist in Princeton. It wasn't accurate. He wanted to make the investigator investigating for his, resources in the novel to, go into like the old dusty books that might have the clue. Well, there was no old dusty book section that you can find by going behind and or getting past the Guardian. A fictional author wrote a fictional thing about Princeton's library, but apparently it's a thing that he did that. There's a page on Gregory Hines accepting his postage stamp, which is funny because a tap dancer and stamping, synchronicity. She goes further to define synchronicity. Like, for instance, two people are on the train, NJ Transit, right? And they're complaining about trains in the U.S. And that is cosmic kismet, that two people on a train are talking about trains. Ooh. And really, I just have to like leave it off here. It's almost like how the book ends, The whole rest of this is just like one-page chapters, which, to be honest, is most of the book to begin with. One thought derivations. And they're making an attempt at significance, or an attempt to fill you with the magic and the wonder. Ooh, and quantum. Gotta say quantum in every paragraph. It's highly important. Like Rick tells Morty. You can't just put a sci-fi word in front of like a car word and hope it means something. Blah, blah, blah. So this was my journey in this book. Perhaps you may find a copy of this or other works. There's like 13 of them in some receptacle near you. Maybe you'll be able to pick them up for a price no more than I paid for them, which was free in one of those pop-up library things that people put in front of their houses. So until next time, I should be more upbeat with the next one that's coming up here. But give it your own try. Dr. Donna Clovis, Falling Bedrooms, Our Lives in the Quantum Field. All right? You come up with your own solutions of what you think about this. In the meantime, thank you very much. One more book down, 6 more to go before I finish another one along the way. All right. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.